In this video, I will give you 14 tips for the FAR exam that will help you beat this beast of exam. So keep watching. Hey future CPAs, this is Ala Abudaya. I'm a licensed CPA in the state of Colorado and an AICPA member. I also help students pass the CPA exam and become CPAs. If this is your first time here and you're interested in becoming CPAs, start by subscribing to our channel and clicking the bell in order not to miss any of my videos. The FAR section of the CPA exam can require hundreds of study hours, and this section is historically the most difficult section with the lowest pass rates. That's why I'm giving you these 14 tips that will help you beat and pass this exam from your first try. And the last two tips are the most important tips. So make sure to stay till the end of the video and hear these tips. Tip number 1. Make sure to be able to convert cash basis financial statements to accrual basis financial statements and learn the related journal entries you must make. As a CPA, you must understand the accrual basis of accounting, which is a requirement by GAAP and IFRS. That's why most, if not all, the FAR exams ask about this topic. Under the accrual basis of accounting, expenses are recorded when incurred rather than when paid. In other words, accrual basis means matching the revenue generated with the expenses incurred to produce the revenue, regardless of the timing of cash inflows and outflows. Some exam candidates have trouble with the adjusting entries that are required by the accrual method. To keep things straight in your mind, remember, an adjusting entry involves one balance sheet account and one income statement account. For example, assume you are liable for $100 of electricity expense on December 31 and that you will pay this expense on January 5th of the following year. Under the cash basis of accounting, you are not required to record any entry in the year which you did not pay this expense. However, under the accrual basis of accounting, you must post an entry related to the electricity expense before the end of the year. So you must record debit electricity expense and credit accrued electricity payable in the amount of $100 as of December 31st. The same thing applies to revenue. So assume that you did a service in a certain year and you did not receive the money or the cash for this service in the same year. Under the cash basis of accounting, you are not required to record any entry. However, under the accrual basis of accounting, you must recognize this revenue which was earned in this year. So you must record debit, account receivable, credit, revenue in the related amount of this revenue. Tip number 2. Make sure to understand the updated lease standards which were effective on the CPA exam starting January 1st, 2019. Understand the new lease rules and related journal entries with respect to lessee and lessor and also the sale-leaseback transactions. Make sure to identify the criteria to classify the lease arrangement as an operating lease or finance lease. There is no capital lease under the new standard. Unlike the old standards, operating leases with over 12 months will now be reported on the balance sheet. The new standard states that if the lessee does not have the right to control the use of the asset, then the transaction will not be considered a lease transaction. Tip number 3. Understand the business combinations and the intercompany eliminations and adjustments. Usually, you will receive a task-based simulation on this topic. So make sure to study this topic and practice sufficient questions on this topic. Usually, this topic is difficult for the exam candidates because business combinations is so complicated. Creating a set of consolidated financial statements may require dozens of accounting entries, and it may be difficult for you to understand the process. Comment below with a yes if you are facing difficulties with this topic. But here is the trick. You can answer consolidation questions if you understand these two concepts. The first concept is what consolidated financial statements mean. Both the parent company and each subsidiary maintain a separate set of financial statements. The consolidation presents the combined financial statements as if all the entities are one combined company, but each business operates separately. The second concept you must understand here is the intercompany transactions. A parent company may have financial transactions with subsidiaries, but the financial impact of those transactions is eliminated in consolidations. Consolidated financial statements only present transactions with third parties only. Tip number 4. Learn the computation of the basic earnings per share and diluted earnings per share. Earnings per share is a key metric used to value companies' common stock. And earnings per share means net income available to common shareholders divided by the weighted average common stock shares outstanding. While the basic earnings per share definition may be clear to you, you may be confused by the diluted earnings per share. So, you must understand the concept here. When something is diluted, it is distributed. And diluted earnings per share means that the same dollar amount of earnings is distributed over more common stock shares. Diluted earnings per share assumes that any security that can be converted into common stock is converted. If the CEO owns stock options that can be converted into 100 shares of common stock, for example, diluted earnings per share assumes that the 100 additional shares are issued to the CEO. Tip number 5. Learn the direct and the indirect method of cash flows. You may receive a task-based simulation on this topic. You will be given a financial statements and then you should prepare a cash flow from these financials. While most CPA candidates understand the categories of the statements of cash flows, which are the operating, financing, and investing, many students are confused by the indirect method of cash flows. The indirect method is only used for cash flow from operations. This method starts with the net income and makes adjustments to arrive at the cash flow from operations. To reconcile between the net income and the cash flow, you add or subtract the non-cash income statement activity items like depreciation, amortization, that are usually added back to the net income to come up with the actual cash. Tip number 6. Make sure to learn the revenue recognition principles, which is now based on performance and not when earned. I know that the material is very condensed, which is causing you to forget what you are studying. Don't worry, I covered you in these 2 videos, which I gave tips on how to study smarter and tips on how to better remember what you are studying. So make sure to watch these 2 videos after this video. Tip number 7. Understand the depreciation methods. This is usually the easiest topic for you since you took this topic several times in the university. You'll encounter several types of depreciation questions on the FAR exam, so keep these points in mind. The differences in the depreciation methods relate to the timing of the expense. An accelerated method, such as the double declining method, will post more depreciation expense in the early years and less in the later years, while the straight line method records the same amount of expense each year. The depreciation method selected will impact net income. An accelerated method will post more depreciation expense in the early years and less net income, and net income will be higher in later years as depreciation expense is reduced. Since total depreciation is the same using each method, you can check your expense calculations to verify that the asset has been fully depreciated. Use these tips to check your answers and verify your understanding of depreciation methods. Tip number 8. Understand and practice bond premiums and discounts. I know this topic will confuse you because it includes a lot of computations. Here is my tip. Bonds are typically issued at a face amount or par amount of $1,000 or its multiples. Since bonds are traded on exchange, bonds can be bought or sold at different prices. If a bond is purchased at a price of $1,200, for example, the purchase price is a premium because it is more than the par value. On the other hand, if it was purchased on a price of $970, it will be a discount price because it's less than the par value. The bond purchased for $1,200 has a $200 premium, and the premium is an additional cost that is reclassified into the bond expense over the remaining life of the bond. If the bond matures in 10 years, for example, the annual expense will be $200 premium divided by the 10 years or $20 a year. However, the bond purchased at $970 has a $30 discount. And the discount is additional income that is reclassified into bond income over the remaining life of the bond. If the bond matures in 10 years, the annual income may be $30 divided by 10 years or $3 a year. A bond premium creates more expense for the buyer, while a discount creates more income for the buyer. Tip number 9. Study the inventory valuation methods. The FAR exam covers several methods that are used to value inventory, but all methods operate using the same set of assumptions. The difference between inventory methods relates to the timing of costs. The first in, first out method, for example, assumes that the oldest or usually the cheapest units are sold first, and that the more expensive items are sold last. As a result, the first in, first out method, or the FIFO method, generates a lower cost of goods sold for the cheaper units and a higher value of ending inventory. The last in, first out method assumes that the newest, which are usually the expensive units, are sold first, which produce higher cost of goods sold. So the entire cost of inventory is reclassified into cost of goods sold, and that process is true for each inventory valuation method. Make sure to learn these methods and how to compute the impairment losses on inventory. Tip number 10. Learn the different types of investments in the valuation methods for each type. When to use the equity method and when to use the fair value method, including the investments in bonds and stocks. So make sure to learn all these methods for investments. Tip number 11. Give enough study time for the state and local government topic. According to the blueprints, the government accounting forms from 5 to 15% of the overall content on the CPA exam. Although it seems a low percentage, however, I recommend you give this topic enough time to study, since it is one of the areas that I hear students have trouble with because they never heard about it before and they never took it in the university. It is the first time they study it in the CPA only. For me personally, I did this mistake of leaving this topic till the end and not giving it enough time to study. I remember I got several multiple choice questions on the governmental accounting on the CPA exam, which were simple and straightforward questions. But I wasn't able to answer these questions because I was not properly prepared and I did not properly study this topic. So don't do my mistake. Governmental accounting is a good way to increase your CPA score because its questions are easy on the exam. If you want to increase your CPA exam score, make sure to watch this video, which I gave 5 tips to increase your CPA exam score. Tip number 12. Identify accounting and reporting differences between IFRS and US GAAP and the impact of these differences on the financial statements. And here comes tip number 13, which is very important. Practice time management strategies by solving sufficient multiple choice questions and giving a time limit of 1.5 minutes for each question. Don't underestimate the importance of time management, because you will get out of time if you do not have a time management strategy during the exam. Make sure to watch this video, which I gave time management strategies for the CPA exam. And here comes tip number 14, which is also the most important tip for the FAR exam. Read the FAR blueprints, which tell you how each topic will be tested, the skill levels that will be tested for each topic, and the representative task that you must fulfill for each topic. There are 3 skill levels that are tested for FAR, which are the remembering and understanding, which cover usually multiple choice questions, application, which are covered in the task-based or multiple choice questions, and analysis, which is usually covered in the task-based simulations. Make sure that you study and fulfill each representative task for the related topic that are required under the blueprints. If you meet these tasks, believe me, you will pass the exam. You can get the blueprints from the AICPA.org website. Just search for them and you will get their link. To learn more about the blueprints, watch this video, which I also explain about the blueprints, and also there's a link in the video for these blueprints. Make sure also to practice the sample tests in the AICPA website. So go to the AICPA.org, research for sample exams, and practice those exams, which will help you in your studies. In summary, FAR exam requires you to learn a bit about a lot of things. Next week, I will give you the audit exam tips. So make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button in order to receive my video as soon as I upload it to YouTube. Make sure to watch these 2 videos in order to learn how to beat the multiple choice questions on the CPA exam and to understand the CPA exam structure in order to beat this exam. Remember, go after what you want, pass the CPA exam, because you can become CPAs and save the world.